the instructor, please look at any edits that I made in delivery. So I'm going to be adding some classroom culture things. I have to get you into Turner Talks, get you out of Turner Talks. So check please the direction that I give when I do that. Any other ways that I try to connect to students, how I cold call on students or if I don't. And again too, if my directions are not clear, right? So what exactly is going on? Coaches, same, but also within the lesson plan itself. If there are holes in the lesson plan, if there are holes in my delivery, so, and how would you assist and edit and help a coach who may be working with this exact text to modify their instruction, but also maintain high expectations. I hope I know how to use this stuff here. Okay, now I'm going to put on my teacher hat. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your presence. You have 3 minutes to complete the do now in your packet on page 21. Remember, the first question is asking us what was the abolitionist movement, and I really want you to give an example from yesterday's class, be specific. You have 3 minutes. Thank you, Mark, for starting with the abolitionist movement was. Thank you for restating and answering that question. If you finished with the second question early, you can just put your pen down or let's see whether you're not thinking it. Another 30 seconds for our thought. You don't need it in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, hands are down. Spotlight me, please. Now we'll just spotlight Thomas. Will you share out your answer to the first question?
Sure. It was a movement toward the ending of slavery. An example from yesterday was the Nat Turner Rebellion.
Okay, let's pause there. You said it was a movement towards the ending of slavery. Why is Nat Turner considered an abolitionist, but Martin Luther King is not? I need a hand. Why would Nat Turner and Frederick Douglass be considered abolitionists, but Martin Luther King is not? Can you tell me your name, please?
Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Go ahead.
Slavery was illegal by the time Martin Luther King was alive.
Thank you. So an abolitionist movement is to end what?
Slavery.
To end what?
Slavery.
Right, let's make it very specific so we're not going too far. Benjamin, question 2. Will you talk about that, please?
Yes, state laws were enacted to make it easier to control slaves. The objective was not to give slaves freedom. Slaves were benefiting their slave masters.
And someone keep pushing that slave laws were to keep them confined. How does not letting people read make you control them? Oh, I love how many hands that I see. tell me your name?
Tomy.
Do it.
Laws made it illegal for them to read because then the slave masters couldn't control the information they were being given.
Got it. Okay. So if we go back to what we learned about Nat Turner, right? And let's push this. What was Nat Turner's job? Nate. Jarossi, what was Nat Turner's job?
Preacher.
You know it. Say it like you know it.
Preacher.
He was a preacher, right? So what book did he have to read? Yeah, and then what made things iffy, right? Because we saw the movie in class, just the clips that we could watch. But remember the movie in class, we talked about how he started out, wait on the Lord, right? But once he got deeper into Exodus, he got to let my people go. But then about the time he got to the New Testament, he started to like cut people's ears off, right? So they viewed literacy as a danger, as a problem. Okay, so let's go into our focus for today, our objective. Riyadh, will you read our objective either from the handout or in your text?
Students will be able to draw conclusions about the life and stories of President Douglas and support these conclusions with evidence from the text.
Okay, we're going to draw conclusions. Specifically, we're going to be making inferences. I'll remind you what that is, but I know you already know. What's our culminating task? Eric, will you read?
What gives Frederick Douglass's story its enduring power? How does his story contribute to the abolitionist movement in the United States? In your answer, be sure to identify inferences you have made from Frederick Douglass's story and cite evidence to support your thinking.
Our agenda today is we're going to go over the GNOW quickly. We're going to take some class notes and make sure that we're solid about making inferences before we jump into this text. We're going to read, we're going to write, we're going to discuss like we do every day. You're pros at it. And we're going to end with our culminating question. So please turn the page to your guided notes for inferences. Spotlight one of these screens, please. I need everyone to make sure you can see one of these screens before you start to write. I'm going to ask Alexis to read the definition of inferences. However, when she reads, we're going to read the underlined parts together. What parts are we going to read together? The underlined part. Just that part. Before I get to it, this word, say deducing. 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 Only the underlined parts. Alexis, are you ready?
Yes.
Let's get it.
Inferences are
conclusions that we draw about a text
based on
evidence and reasoning.
An inference is an
Educated guess.
we learn about some things by experiencing them firsthand, but we gain other knowledge by inference.
The process of deducing a conclusion based on what is already known.
Beautiful. Take 1 minute, fill in the blanks as you can. As long as I get one strong person to get it from the table, you guys can support each other. We take 1 minute, fill in those blanks. I think I have at least one person done per table. We're going to go to the next one, but don't worry if you didn't get it. Why is it important to make inferences as you read? Same thing. Liz, will you read this? And we're going to read together.
Underline.
Underline. You guys did beautifully. Let's do it again. Liz, hit it.
Thoughtful, active readers
Apply their own meaning when reading.
proficient readers use prior knowledge and textual information to draw
Conclusions, critical judgments, and form unique interpretations from text.
You know what an inference is. It's an educated guess. We use our text, then we use what we know, we put that together, it's an inference. Fill in the blanks for these as well, 30 seconds. If I get one strong person to do it, that's great. Don't go back to the first one, just keep moving on. Pause where you are and look at the board again. It's okay if you don't have the notes, just stay with me, okay? Last one, how do we make inferences? What are we gonna read together? I'm gonna read it here. So, thank you for being attentive. This one, I'm just gonna read, you can start to fill in those blanks. How do we make inferences? Ask yourself, what does this detail or event demonstrate? How does this word, phrase, or detail connect to what I already know? We're connecting the what to the how or why. We have to get back on information. The what is always going to be first, because we need to cite evidence. Then we're going to try to connect our background information to what we know, so we can figure out why did this person make this choice. This is how we make inferences. Take 20 more seconds to finish, and then we're going to see if you can do it, because I know you can. On page 23, there's an independent practice section. You're going to take 2 minutes and 2 minutes only, so you might need to skim for this, but I know you can handle it. See if you can make an inference about Sean's preparation for the test. If it sounds like you, it's okay. That means you'll be able to answer the question better. Take 2 minutes, read to yourself about what happened to Sean. Can you relate, but more specifically, what inference can you make about what he did during class? 2 minutes, independent. I'll be coming around to help you if you need it. Go. I love how I see people annotating the text already. Thank you so much. It's going to help you. We don't need 2 minutes, you're brilliant. Grant, what did you annotate?
Sean's eyes widened when he realized they were having a test.
Could you nod your head if that's something you also annotated? What else?
He pulled out a crumpled notebook with part of the cover torn off. He frantically rifled through pages, which many were not filled in, and had doodles on it.
Grant gave us evidence. Now we have to make an inference. What inference can we make based on that evidence? Thank you, Colleen.
We can make the inference that Sean is unprepared for the test.
If you agree with her, can you show her some love that you agree? And you want to add on to that, Colleen?
He didn't take good notes and he doesn't know what it's going to be about, so he's worried.
Right, so we're going to make sure we're not Sean today, right? So we're going to jump into this text, we're going to lean in, we're going to annotate so we can make sure that we can identify what an inference is when working with Frederick Douglass. So turn the page, we're on page 24. If you didn't fill out that second part of the question, that's okay, because we're going to move. Before we jump into the text, don't forget that we've seen Frederick Douglass before. We know that he's an abolitionist. We know his writing style. So one way we can also help make inferences, if you know an author, especially a nonfiction author who has a purpose, you told me that he was trying to end slavery, we can already make predictions and match our background knowledge with this text. We read, what to the slave is the 4th of July, right? So we hear him saying things like, to him this celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and thanksgivings. Your sermons are all religious parade and solemnity. Are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up the crimes that would disgrace a nation of savages. Are we just a thin veil to cover up the crimes of a nation of savages? You read this last week and identified the ironic tone of Frederick Douglass. You know his purpose, you know his method, you know what he's doing, so take that with you as you read this text. You already got it. Are you ready to dig into this?
Yes.
Yeah, you ready?
Yes.
Flip to the text, please. I'm going to be cold calling you, so you have to be ready. I could call you in the beginning, I could call you in the end, in the middle of a sentence, and if you're not ready, that's okay, you'll pick back up. I'll read sometimes too. But as you're reading, I do want you to follow along with a pen, a pencil, something, just so that I know we're on the same page, so that we can really dig into the text. All right. Then we have my annotated copy. So what are you going to do as we read? Follow along and annotate. I heard both, right? You already got this. I lived in. Put your finger on the top. And Donald, will you start? I lived in. Is he not here? Okay. Jesus, will you start?
I lived in Master Hugh's family about 7 years. During this time, I succeeded in learning to read and write. In accomplishing this, I was compelled to resort to various stratagems. I had no regular teacher.
Naja?
My mistress was a friend of mine, had inclined to advise direction for her husband, not only ceased to instruct, but had set her face against my being instructed by anyone else.
Pause there. To make inferences, the first thing we have to do is find what? To find what?
Evidence.
If I read this text, this is my model. I need to figure out what's going on first. I read that he lived with a family. I know he was a slave because I knew that from last week, and I know Frederick Douglass, right? But it said something about a mistress. Did he have a chick on the side? I'm confused. Someone help me. Who is this mistress? Carolyn.
This master's wife.
His master's wife. Okay, now I'm clear. Because if I don't understand that part of the text, I might make it incorrect, right? So his master's wife is the person who's teaching him to read, but then she stopped. Because I know cease means stop, but then also my great teacher put that in the question so it could help me. I know she stopped to teach him, and I need to know why. If I look back in the text, I see, and this is what I annotated, in compliance with the advice and direction of her husband. Will you underline that, please, if you have not yet? In compliance with the advice and direction of her husband. Even if this wasn't the question that you're being asked by the teacher, there's a shift happening in this text, right? Something started and then something else happened. So I need to know what happened or else I can't get to the end of the text. In compliance with the advice and direction of her husband. So now I know that the reading stopped and now I need to find out why. So in compliance means that it's because he told her to. So on your chart where I'm doing the model with the evidence, you don't have to rewrite that quote, but will you annotate it, like write a number, like it's a footnote if you were writing this essay? Like I would annotate in my notes, thank you Eric, like a number 1, and then you can write the number 1 in your text, and teachers are gonna have these at all times. And you're going to high school soon, so I wanna teach you how to take efficient notes. I have this text, now my inference. What do I know? Okay, so I know that I'm in social studies class, that there's a husband and a wife. What do I know about relationships between men and women? Okay, so that they're married. What do I know about this time period? We know that slavery exists, but I haven't explicitly had anything about gender relationships between this family, but I do know that women don't have the right to vote at this time, right? Take whatever you got that can work with it. So maybe she's following his direction because she is the wife, and that the husband is telling her to do something and she's following through because that's what the gender norms of the time tell her to. That's one inference I can make. I also know that Nat Turner, because after he was hung and his body was desecrated and sent out as souvenirs to the white people in the South, that they made laws to keep blacks from voting. So then maybe that's also why. And this isn't something I'm making up, right? I'm grabbing it from things that I've encountered in my class. I'm using things that I've encountered in life as well, which could also be used as experiential or text. So my inference is, and this is what I would write in my box on the right, thank you Amanda, who already started, is that one, maybe it's a gender norm thing. The man said no, he doesn't want his wife associated with the slave or teaching in some capacity. That's one inference I can make. The second one being, he's doing this because of the laws in place. That's historical context, and that's also connecting to the lesson we just made before. Evidence, inference, and that's my conclusion. So it's two parts that you can do together. Take the next 30 seconds. So we already put our evidence on the left. My inference, it's a gender norm thing, or going back to the Nat Turner, slaves are not allowed to read. We don't want to get in trouble. Once you've done that, we're going to go back to our text. We stopped after the first paragraph, so we're going to pick up from this time. And whenever you're ready, Khalifa, will you start from this time?
Sure. From this time, I was most narrowly watched. If I was in a separate room any considerable length of time, I was sure to be suspected of having a book, and was at once called to give an account of myself. All this, however, was too late.
Amanda?
The first step had been taken. Mistress, in teaching me the alphabet, had given me the inch, and no precaution could prevent me from taking the L.
The ruler. Keep going.
The plan which I adopted, and the one by which I was most successful, was that of making friends of all the little white boys whom I met in the street.
As many of these as I could, I converted into teachers. As many of these as I could, I converted into teachers. David, what do you pick up?
They're kindly obtained at different times and different places. I finally succeeded in learning to read. When I was sent to Paris, I always took my book with me, and by going one part of my errand quickly, I found time to get a lesson before my return. I used also to carry bread with me, enough of which was always in the house, and to which I was always welcome. But I was much better off in this regard than many of the poor white children in our neighborhood.
Pause there. Thank you so much for the work that you did. Right now, you're going to start to find evidence independently. Then you'll work with your partner to make an inference. So 2 minutes, and everybody writes. What evidence do we see that he was determined to read and write? Maybe he wasn't. Prove to me that he was determined to read and write. 2 minutes. Take the next minute with your neighbor. Go on the top of page 25. What can we what can we infer about this based on the evidence that you collected? So I want to hear you discussing the evidence, right? And then making an educated guess based on what you already know, because that's what inference is. 1 minute. Thank you, Alyssa, for your slack. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to jump back in the text. I heard some really great conversations, and the best thing I heard is that you were going to the text first, right? And making connections to what you already knew. We're going to pick back up on this bread I used to bestow. So we're on our, almost the last paragraph, right? The last paragraph. This bread I used to bestow. Chana, will you start, please?
Sure. This bread I used to bestow upon the hungry little urchins, who in return would give me the more valuable bread of knowledge. I am strongly tempted to give the names of the 2 or 3 of those little boys as a testimonial of the gratitude and affection I bear them, but prudence forbids.
Sabine? Thomas?
Not that it would injure me, but it might embarrass them, for it is almost an unpardonable offense to teach slaves to read in this Christian country. It is enough to say of the dear little fellows that they lived on Philpott Street, very near Durkin and Bailey's shipyard.
Pause. I have a question. I put quotations because I'm annotating, right? I put quotations around Christian. Why did I do that?
Ironic.
Oh, I heard. Who's talking? Tell me. What did you?
I said it because it's ironic.
Yeah.
That
Why?
That it's this Christian country we're supposed to love thy neighbor and care, but then it's only for certain people.
What people? So you don't answer. I heard that it's supposed to be this Christian country, love your neighbor, but that's not how we treat certain people. Push it. What people?
White people.
So we do treat. Don't talk about it. You do it.
It's for white people, but when it comes to African American, then it's the story or the Christian background does not pertain to that.
So using that, right? Now we get to our last question. Why wasn't he going to give these white students a shout out? They were helping him. They were doing something that was not against the norm. Go into the text, see if you and your neighbor can figure out why are we not calling out the names of these helpful little children at this time. Just 1 minute with your neighbor and then we're going to move. So don't write it. I want to hear good evidence-focused discussions. Three, two, one. Thank you so much. Before we move on to your question, I heard a great little conversation over here, and we're pushing, and this also connects to why these students were embarrassed, right? We're saying white people, and we talked about Reconstruction in the South. Now it's not just white, there's blacks, whites, poor, rich, whatever. Alyssa was mentioning how it's the poverty of these white students that also makes their status and could be embarrassing at this time, right? So now we're also making an inference based on what we know in the text. You would write that, but you're not going to.